If you have an anger problem, I would bet a lot of money that you weren't allowed to express anger as a child. And that could have been through suppression or punishment. Suppression being that you had to act a lot more mature for your age. Either there was something requiring you to be more grown up than you should have been. Maybe you had to take care of your little brother or your little sister, or maybe you even had to take care of your mom or your dad because they weren't emotionally stable. And the other way that you might not have been allowed to express your anger is if you were punished for it. Whenever you got angry, your parents would yell at you for being angry or punish you, or in my case, spank you. I want to give a quick definition of complex PTSD. I think right now it's being massively underdiagnosed. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is caused by a single traumatic event. Complex PTSD is caused by multiple traumatic events. For now, this is my definition. Complex PTSD is being afraid all the time. Maybe you have complex PTSD and that doesn't really resonate with you. And it didn't resonate with me either until I saw the there's George. He's so cute. You have to trust me. Complex PTSD, in a nutshell, baseline definition, you're afraid all the time. You are in fight or flight all the time. So this is back to the term my husband and I are using. You're in FOF. You're foffing all the time. And I didn't realize how much I was foffing until I started doing the body scans and the meditation. Now I know that I am foffing multiple times a day, and it's horrible. And I want to talk in another video about the fact that it is a disability. Even I was resistant to calling it a disability, but that's because of the c-ptsd. Now that I can see the FOF, I have zero reservations about calling it a disability. A person who is in fight or flight multiple times a day is a person who is going to be incredibly exhausted, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and incredibly stressed. That type of stress has a massive effect on your body and your mind, and it is debilitating. Even just a month ago, I was telling myself it's not that bad. And now that I see it, it's horrendous. And that's what complex PTSD is. You're in fight or flight all the time. Your brain is telling you everything is something to be afraid of. There's this famous book that everyone talks about, which I have problems with it, but I mean, overall, it's great. But there was this sentence in it that said, for the traumatized child, the world is full of triggers. And I would add to that, the external world and internal world is full of triggers, because that's what I've come to realize through the body work that I have been doing. Even if you don't believe me now, that's okay, because I didn't believe it either. When my therapist asked me if I feel safe and I said yes, that was just so not true. But I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that I don't feel safe, that I never feel safe. Because I said, I don't understand what you mean by that. I don't understand what you mean by, do I feel safe? I'd always bring it back to the physical threat. Well, no, there's no physical threat around me at all. In a literal sense, I am safe. I didn't know that my brain thinks we're not safe all the time. And he kept asking me this, and he kept poking and prodding, and I would keep telling him, yes, sir, I'm safe. And he said, try to think of it in another way. Do you feel at ease? And I was like, well, no. He's like, try to think of the last time that you felt at ease. And I said, well, one day I managed to actually clean the whole house in a day. And then I felt so good. And now I know it's because my brain released me from the fight or flight because the house was clean. So the house being clean signaled safety. It was so wonderful. It's like nothing I've ever felt before. And what it was is it's just, I felt safe for a day. And that was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. It's like, do regular people feel this way all the time? How often does a regular person enter into fight or flight? I would like to know, like once a week, once a month, because I now know that I enter into fight or flight, I would say almost a dozen times a day. I feel it now. Sometimes I lose count. And then he asked me, how often do you feel like that? How many times a month? And I was like, a month? I haven't felt like that in years. And he was like, years? And I said, yeah. And that feeling was the feeling of not being in fight or flight. The only solution is to connect with your mind and your body and to develop a relationship with them so that they feel heard and acknowledged, and that you are receiving the information that they're giving you. Okay, we should move on to the stuff that I wanted to talk about. What is a trigger? I kind of hate this word now because it's been taken and turned into this thing that is to be mocked in our society and culture. I think that's because people were referring to it inappropriately, like that if I get triggered by you, it is your fault. It's like, no, that's, you cannot blame other people for the way that your brain is wired. I mean, maybe you can blame the people who caused the wiring, but but the people who are just behaving normal and are triggering that wiring in your brain, those people aren't at fault. I have to use the term because it's an important term. And I believe, this is just my opinion, the current discourse surrounding the concept of triggers is missing something so important, so important. And so I'm so excited to talk about it because I feel like this is it. Okay, so let's just start with what is a trigger. A trigger is something that puts your brain and body into fight or flight. This could be anything, something happening, another person, a specific person, a specific song, a specific sound. Fight or flight, your stress response, your survival response is a response to fear. It's a response to a neural pathway in your brain that signals fear, that says, this is dangerous, therefore we need fight or flight to help us with the danger. And that's why I say people with c-ptsd are afraid all the time. Our brains are constantly seeing danger and signaling danger. This is an anecdote, but I was filling out my disability thingamajigger. It said, like, does the patient interpret dangerous situations as not dangerous situations? And then I said to my doctor, like, what about the opposite problem? And she was like, what do you mean? My brain sees danger literally everywhere. And she was like, oh, okay, like, I guess I'll write that down. And it's like, this is the disability, and that your whole life is just danger. Anyways, that's my anecdote. Even in my disability form, it did not give full consideration to this disability. What makes you feel fear is unique to each person. Granted, there are some things that objectively should signal fear to your brain, legitimately dangerous situations. But then there are situations that are objectively not dangerous that different brains will see as danger. I always gave myself shit because I would be like, why can't I just be a person who's fine when someone else is stressed? Why do I have to get so angry when someone around me is stressed out? And it's because we are all unique in what signals to our brain that there is danger. In my brain, the pathway is there. Another person is stressed, that's danger. And that pathway does not exist for everyone. So that's why it's a pathway that I have to deal with. And maybe you have to deal with this pathway too. Your pathways are unique. So what causes you fear is going to be unique to you. Whether we're aware of it or not, it doesn't matter if we're aware of it because it's there. In childhood, anything that leads to a threat to the care that you're receiving is a threat to your survival. Therefore, your brain is going to signal danger. And your neurons are building that pathway, a neurological wiring of fear. It's all to survive. And that wiring will be there forever. I've heard that it can be deconstructed. I'm starting to feel like it will always be there. And that the only thing that we can do is create new pathways with an awareness of the old pathways, and then choose to take the new pathways. And we might feel the pull of the old pathways, and we can feel them and see them, but that we have to choose the new pathways. I don't know if you can deconstruct your old pathways, but I know that I'm seeing them now. I can see the pathways. To me, this is the answer. And your little human brain did this to reduce that threat to survival, keeping your emotions bottled up because you got punished for expressing your negative emotions. They were your coping strategies. Those are the strategies that your little brain developed in order to survive. You brought those into adulthood, which is completely normal. It is completely normal. And then we default to these strategies in adulthood because it's all that we know. One of the things is that you don't even know everything that you're afraid of. And you might not even know it's fear, like how I didn't know. I didn't know that. I knew it as guilt, anger, self-criticism, hypervigilance, rage, isolating myself, feeling on edge, anxiety, disassociating, people-pleasing. I knew it as all of these things. And at the end of the day, it is all one thing. It is all one thing. Fight or flight, caused by feeling unsafe. The problem is not as complicated as I was making it out to be. These are all just fight or flight reactions, which is why I want to now call this channel Fof You, because I think it's cute. It's like Fof You, like all of it, all of my pain, all of my fear is from these pathways that are signaling danger. You're not imagining. You're not exaggerating. It is as bad as you think it is. It took me like 6 months of weekly therapy with a good therapist, and then 2 weeks of doing the body work and meditation. And then it became clear that I never feel safe, because that's what was wired when I was a kid. This work led me to discover some really disturbing, upsetting things about my triggers. One of the more disturbing things was that I found out my own name is a trigger to me. My own name triggers my fight or flight because of the way that when my parents used to say my name was really terrifying, not knowing if they're calling me because I'm in trouble, because I did something wrong. They never called my name to tell me something good. It was always either I did something wrong or they want me to do something. I believe there is a spectrum of fight or flight. There is like a little bit of fight or flight, and then there is a lot, and then there's anything in between. So if my parents just say my name, the FOF is like here. If a stranger says my name, the FOF is like here. It's not as bad, but it's still there. If my parents say my name in a certain tone, FOF is like here. It's not just an on or off. It has different levels to it. I don't even like when my husband says my full name. And that's actually how I realized, is that he said it once. After I'd been doing all this body work, he said my full name, which he almost never says at home. And I entered into fight or flight, and I felt it. When he said my name, I got the signals of fight or flight. And that's what I think that the discourse on triggers is missing, the signal. And then there's 2 other disturbing triggers that I discovered. The first one is the more important one, which is that I'm triggered by my own emotions. I am triggered when I am angry, sad, or feel pain. That to me was a huge realization. When I am angry, that triggers my fight or flight. You have a neurological pathway that says your own anger is danger. Your own anger is a threat to your survival. Your anger triggers your fight or flight. Therefore, you are afraid of your own anger. Are you kidding me? This is incredible. This explains so much. For me, not only is it anger, but it's also sadness, because I was also punished for expressing sadness. Sadness is a threat to safety, which is then danger, which is then fear, which is then fight or flight. So when I am sad, I enter fight or flight. When I'm angry and I'm foffing from my anger, the foff makes me do things like the ragey things and say things that I don't mean. What happens from then? I foff on the foff. I'm triggered by my foff. And then it just grows. So I'm gonna come up with names for these things, because I feel like no one has talked about this. I've never seen this anywhere. It's a compounding trigger. And remember how I said it's a spectrum? And then it will just boom, 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 create more. And then it's just out of control. And I've had days where it's just completely out of control. And I suspect that those are days where it's climbed this ladder of triggers. Different triggers will result in different FOF responses. So anger, like 100% of the time, results in the fight response. But sadness, a lot of the time, results in a flight response. So when I am sad, I want to just be alone. I might want to leave my relationship. So if my husband does something that makes me sad, I will have thoughts of leaving the relationship. And those are FOF thoughts. Those are FOF. The last upsetting trigger that I discovered is something that I kind of already knew, but I've uncovered more about it. I am triggered by other people's distress. So if other people around me are angry or sad, that signals to my brain a threat to safety. So this is the contradicting trigger. So there is one message that this is not safe. We need to remove ourselves from this situation. But then there is another message that no, we have to help this person with their negative emotions so that we can feel safe again. And those two things are happening at the same time, and they are contradictory. This option removes you from the danger altogether. This option exposes you further to the danger with the hopes that this exposure is going to reduce the danger. If you're constantly choosing to help the other person, that means you are constantly putting other people above the option of removing from danger. That is going to damage your relationship with your own mind and body. I really need to move on to the essential part of understanding triggers, which is the signal. You have the trigger, and then you have FOF, and there's something in between. The signal that you are getting from your mind and your body. And that is what the body work is going to get you to uncover. They always tell you, oh, identify your triggers so that you know what they are. What if you don't know what your triggers are? I didn't know what all my triggers were until I started listening to the signals from both my mind and my body, because the signals are different, but you're getting both. You receive both. And the more you do the body work with the body scans and the meditation, the better you will be able to hear those signals and to know that, okay, these signals mean that I am in FOF. You end up working backwards, which has been really cool. So I've received a signal. I know, oh, this signal means I'm in FOF. Why am I in FOF? Well, what was it that caused the signal? Then clarity as to what the triggers are. That's how I came to realize that my own name was a trigger. My husband said my name and I got the signal, and I was like, holy shit. My own name just put me in fight or flight. When the signals are really quiet, you can't hear them. Like a trusted human being saying my name, the signal is small because the FOF is small. But then when the signal and the FOF is loud, that's also hard to access. If my parents come over and they say my name in that tone, the signal is so loud that I can't even recognize that. I had to work within this area. This is a known concept called the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is an established concept in psychology right now, that when you're working in an area that you can manage, so the signal is loud enough that you can hear it, but not too loud that it's just overpowering. When you develop an ability to listen to the signals in this region, it helps you to better understand them when you're down here and when you're up here. And you have to listen to them both from body and from mind, because they do come from both places. So the signals are in the form of body sensations, like an elevated heart rate. When I get angry, my face gets hot. I feel it in the back of my throat here. These are discoveries that I have made based on my own body and my own brain. So yours are going to be different. There might be some similarities, but they're going to be unique to you. The more you listen to the signals, the better you will be able to identify them when you're not ready for them. And the signals from the brain, I'm so excited to tell you this. Oh my God. The signals from the brain are in the form of thoughts. When I get the signal from my body, there are certain thoughts that come along with it. And those thoughts are signals that I am in fight or flight. You should leave your husband. He's not right for you. I see that as the signal. And I can sit back and go, oh, something triggered me. What was it? Okay, so my husband is stressed right now. He's stressed about work. The trigger is he's stressed about work. I got the signal. There is a signal from my mind. Oh, he's not the right person for me. I should leave him. There was a signal from my body of an elevated heart rate. That means I'm in FOF. So I take that thought and I put it in the FOF bucket and I see it there. And I can feel the pull down the old pathway of actually entertaining this thought as though it were valid, as though it were real. It's pulling me and I can feel it because it's so strong. And now I can look at it and say, okay, I see you and I accept you. And I can look at the path and not go down it and just observe it. And it's pulling, like pulling so hard. And the only way to stop it from pulling me is to look at it and accept it. Try not to think about how I want to react in this situation, how I want to think in this situation. The only way that I can truly stop it from pulling me is if I just sit and observe it, and I accept it and acknowledge its message for me and embrace it. Tell me more. Then the thoughts come in. You should leave. You have to leave. You would be happier if you left. And I can take them and put them in that bucket. And the more it wants to give me, the more I'll take. I'll put it here. This is not a bucket to be put away. This is a bucket to be acknowledged. That's really important. I had a therapist once tell me that after therapy to take everything that I was thinking and feeling and put it in a container and then put that container away only to be opened at our next therapy session. This is horrendous advice. You do not want to deny your mind and body for a whole week. That is not how you get better. It's just not. So this bucket that I'm talking about, it's like a transparent bucket. It's there just so that I can put the thoughts in it and know what they are and still see them and acknowledge them, but never ignore them. Never put them away, because that only makes them stronger and it makes the pull more powerful. When I try to hide them, they pull harder, and that is how they are always going to operate. When they feel seen, they stop pulling. Honestly, I have so much more to say, but I've already gone on way too long. I'll end this by saying that there's the trigger, the signal, and then the fa. The trigger is important, yes, because we don't want to avoid our triggers. We want to know what they are, but crucial is the signal. And the signal comes from the body and from the mind. And the way that we access those signals is through the body scans and the meditation. If you've been doing your body scans and your meditation, I'll talk about what the next steps are in order to be able to access those signals. I'm prioritizing these videos in terms of what I think is going to help you now. We can get into the weeds of things later. My priority is to help you now. This is the information that I think is the most important, just based on my experience and the fact that I've been wanting to for 6 years. I can't wait to talk to you more. Seriously, I have so much. Please stick around. This is really, really important information. Okay, I really can't end videos. I don't know how to end videos. Ugh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't know how to end videos. Have a good day.